How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the PatriotDIY channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I built this awesome CNC table. Alright guys, now I recently picked up this 4x2 Shapeoko 5 Pro CNC machine, and I needed a table to put it on. Now I know there are a lot of options out there on the market for CNC tables and really basic workbenches, but I knew if I wanted to get the most out of this, I needed to build it myself. I wanted something that was really nice and sturdy with plenty of storage. Also knew I wanted a sliding bottom shelf. Now I have a laser engraver that I'm going to be putting down there, but really a sliding shelf like that can be good for a lot of things. And I also wanted to make sure it was mobile. Now, a mobile workbench like this could be great for a lot of purposes, so you don't have to use it for a CNC machine, but I did size this specifically to fit this 4x2 Shapeoko 5 Pro. Now, I do have digital build plans for how to build this workbench. Those are going to be linked in the description below, along with links to this CNC machine as well, if you want to check that out. Now, if you've built any of the other workbenches that we've done here on the channel, like the miter station or the outfeed table, this is going to match those pretty nicely if you're going for that look in your shop. But I'm going to get in here and show you step by step exactly how I built this CNC table or mobile workbench. But first, guys, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up. Now let's get to work. I'm going to be building the frame for this table out of 2x4s. So I'm going to start by cutting down all those 2x4 components over at the miter saw. This miter station with stop blocks really helps for making those repeatable cuts. Next, I'm going to start constructing the legs for this table. They're going to be made up of a longer piece and a shorter piece with a 3-inch overhang on each end. So I'm going to measure and mark for that overhang, then apply a generous amount of glue and clamp the two components together. Once I have these positioned correctly and clamped, I'm also going to go back and countersink and lock these two components together with screws. Now, while I'm waiting for that glue to dry, I'm going to start drilling pocket holes into all of my stretcher pieces for the frame. Now, to get a nice clean look for this table, I'm going to be milling down each of these components to 3 inches wide. That's going to cut off those rounded edges and give it a nice clean look. So I'm going to start by taking my legs over to the jointer and running it through a couple times to get a nice flat face. And you can see here how much nicer that looks. And I'm going to do the same thing for all of those 2x4 components, running them through the jointer to get a flat face. Then I'll take those over to the table saw to trim off that opposite edge, giving me 4 flat faces and a 3-inch width. With all my frame components prepped, I'm going to lightly sand to knock off those sharp edges, and then I'm ready to start assembling the frame. So I'll lay out the components on my workbench, apply some wood glue to the overhang on the legs, then I'll fit my runners and legs together and clamp everything in place. I'm also using a corner clamp here to make sure everything is nice and square before finally going back and countersinking and fastening those together with screws. And I'm going to follow that same process to assemble both sides of my frame. With the 2 sides of my frame complete, I'm going to take them down to the floor and start attaching them together using those stretchers that we cut earlier. So I'm going to clamp these components together and fasten them with pocket hole screws. I follow that same process to install all the stretchers. I have one at the top and bottom on each end of the frame and one in the middle to help support the tabletop. And with that, the frame of our CNC table is complete. So now I can turn my attention to the cabinet. I'm going to start by cutting down all the cabinet components to rough dimensions with the track saw. Then I'll take those over and cut them down to their final dimensions at the table saw. This is going to be both sides of the cabinet, all of the runners and nailers, and all of the drawer components. Then I'll cut these down to length at the miter saw. Then I'm going to drill pocket holes into the ends of each of the nailers. Then with all the cabinet components prepped, I'm going to go back and pre-sand each piece. And now I'm ready to start assembling my cabinets. I'm going to lay out one of my sides on the workbench, then apply some wood glue and clamp one of the nailers in place and fasten it with pocket hole screws. I'm going to follow that same process for all of the nailers. These are going to be the components that go between the two sides of the cabinet. Now I'm also going to have drawers in this cabinet, so I'm going to use a piece of plywood to make sure I have the proper spacing and go ahead and attach the drawer supports to the side, again with pocket hole screws. With that, I can take this whole thing down to the floor, clamp everything together, and attach the other side of the cabinet. Next, I'm going to add one more nailer here on the back of the cabinet. This is going to help give the cabinet box more support and give me some way to attach the cabinet back. Now to attach the drawer divider, I'm going to measure and mark the center, then drop that in place and countersink and fasten to those nailers with wood screws. With that, this simple cabinet box is complete and I'm ready to slide it into the frame of the table. Once I have that in place, I use a scrap piece of plywood to set this cabinet box about 3/4 of an inch back from the front face of the frame. And once I have that right where I want it, I'm going to screw that cabinet box to the frame using cabinet screws. Now I do want this table to be mobile, so I'm going to flip the whole assembly over on its side and install some 3-inch locking casters. With my frame and cabinet complete, I'm ready to start on the drawers. So first I'm going to drill pocket holes into the front and backs of each of the drawer boxes. Then I'll lay out all the components on my workbench, apply some wood glue, then I'll clamp these components together and fasten them with wood glue and pocket hole screws. This is a very simple way to construct drawer boxes and it works out very nicely, especially for shop furniture. And I'm going to follow that same process to construct all 4 of my drawer boxes. And I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch plywood for the bottoms of each of these drawers. So I rip those down to size at the table saw, then apply some wood glue to the bottom of each of these boxes, drop the bottom in place, and fasten it with brad nails. And that's it for these nice simple drawer boxes. Now I'm ready to install those drawers, so I'm going to be using some pieces of plywood as spacers to get the proper placement for my drawer slides. Then I'll install those following the manufacturer instructions. With those slides in place, I can go ahead and drop my drawer in and get that attached to the drawer slides. And I'm going to follow that same process to install all 4 of my drawers. Now for my drawer faces, I've already pre-marked the holes for the drawer pulls, and I'm going to be using some 1/4 inch spacers to help get these drawer faces aligned, and then I'll screw the face to the box through the holes for the drawer pulls. I do the same thing using those spacers to get the alignment just right. Then I'll open those drawers up and attach the drawer faces permanently from the inside of the drawer. With the drawer faces installed, I can remove those screws from the front and install the drawer pulls. Now, I mentioned earlier I want a large pull-out shelf at the bottom of this table. For the frame of this shelf, I've cut some 2-inch wide strips, and I'm going to be assembling this pretty much the same way we did the drawer boxes. And I'm also going to add a couple of supports in the middle to help support the top of this shelf. Then I apply some wood glue and drop in this 3/4 inch piece for the top of my shelf. Then I'll fasten that down with some brad nails. And you'll notice I have a little bit of an overhang with the top of this, and that's just so I don't have such a huge gap where the slides are going to be. Now, to install this shelf, I'm using some heavy-duty 36-inch locking drawer slides. So I'm just going to put this shelf in place, and I'm going to attach it the same way you would a drawer. But these are special slides designed to support a lot of weight, and it's also designed to lock in place when you pull it out. I'm also going to add a face to this similar to the drawer faces just to cover up the pocket holes, and I'll also be adding a drawer pull to this. And you'll notice these little notches cut out in the front. That's for these little locking tabs. You're just going to lift up on that tab to pull the shelf out, and then it's going to lock in place, and you pull up on that tab again to release it. Now I'm ready to install the tabletop. Now, like with all the workbenches in my shop, I'm going to be building the top out of 2 layers of plywood. You don't have to do this, but it does make for a very nice strong tabletop. So I'm going to lay my tabletop face down and apply a very liberal amount of wood glue, then lay on my second layer and get it positioned before clamping the 2 pieces together. Once I've got both layers of my tabletop clamped down nice and tight, I'm going to go back and drive in a bunch of wood screws to really help secure these 2 pieces together. Once those screws are in, you can remove the clamps and flip the tabletop over. Now, I did make the top layer slightly larger than the bottom layer, so I could go back and use a flush cut router bit to get the edges of this tabletop perfectly flat. Then I'll go back and sand those edges smooth. Now, to make this look a little nicer and to protect the edges of the plywood, I'm going to be adding some trim all the way around this tabletop. For this, I'm just using some 1x2 material. I'm going to apply some wood glue here, clamp those in place, and then fasten it with brad nails. I'm going to do this for all 4 edges of the tabletop, and then I'll go back and fill in those nail holes later. With that done, I'll get my tabletop centered and then fasten it from underneath with some L brackets. With my tabletop secured, I'm going to go back and sand everything with some 120 grit sandpaper. Now, I also want to round over the edges of my tabletop, so I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch round over bit in my router. And then I'm ready to add a finish. Now, you can use any finish you want for this, but for mine, I'm going to use some shellac. So I'll lay down my first coat and then give that ample time to dry. Once that's cured, I'm going to go back and lightly sand with 220 grit sandpaper and then apply some additional coats. All right, guys, that is it for the assembly of our CNC table. Now it's time to get our Shapeoko 5 Pro assembled and mounted on the top of this table. Don't forget, I will have links for the CNC machine that I'm using in the description below, so check that out. Now let's put our new CNC table to use. All right, guys, this is the Shapeoko 5 Pro. It did come with some very good assembly instructions. They also have some great videos on how to assemble this. They've made this process very easy by having a lot of things pre-assembled for you. So you see me here assembling the sides, the CNC table, along with the sacrificial boards, installing the spindle, and getting everything wired up. Now, once I've had some time to use this machine, I am going to be coming back and doing a full review for you guys, so make sure you stay tuned for that video. And don't forget, I do have a link for the Shapeoko 5 Pro in the description below. Now you can see on the back here, I still have a little bit of cleaning up to do with these wires and stuff. But right here where these nailer strips are, this was basically the back side of the support for our drawers in the front. But what I did here was just added a panel on the back on both sides. That gives you a good spot to mount your control boxes and power strips and things like that. Now you want to actually see this in the plan. In the plan, I just used a 1/4 inch plywood panel here on the back of the cabinet to close it off. But I do want to show you guys what I did here just to help incorporate a spot for all the wires and electronics and everything like that. Pretty simple to do. I think it's a pretty good option if that's what you're using this bench for. And with that, my CNC table is complete. The CNC machine is assembled, and I think this looks great. All right, guys, that is it for how to build this CNC table or mobile workbench. I hope you liked the video, guys. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know in the comment section below. I'm really excited about this Shapeoko 5 Pro CNC machine. I can't wait to get some projects started with this thing. I think this is going to be a big help here in my shop, and I can't wait to make some videos for you guys showing you some projects and how you can use a CNC machine. But I'm really loving the table that we built for it. This thing is perfect. I love all the storage, the extra capabilities that this has, and I think it looks great too. So don't forget, guys, I will have links to the build plans for this CNC table linked in the description below, along with links to all the tools we used in this video, as well as the Shapeoko 5 Pro. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.